Okay, so welcome again if you just joined us. Thanks so much for tuning in to learn more about the Edmund Hillary Fellowship and the opportunities in New Zealand. We're going to go ahead and get started. I have that it's top of the hour on my watch. So just quickly in the way of introductions, I'm Lauren Peet and I lead candidate attraction for the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. And I'm going to hand it off now to Joseph Ayele, who's our chief executive.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar. I'll start by talking to you about what EHF is about. So the Edmund Hillary Fellowship is set up to bring together the best of humankind's entrepreneurial potential to tackle global challenges from New Zealand. Our work is to attract a lot of talent in entrepreneurship and investment, working in areas that are innovating to create positive impact in the world. So much of our fellowship is building a global platform for both entrepreneurs and investors who are working in high innovation ventures. So our focus is very much on entrepreneurs or investors. There are a whole lot of other people who can join the platform, but the fellowship itself is for the two types of individuals. At the end of the day, EHF is about building community of change makers. And the community is there to help bring purpose-driven ventures to life. So the entrepreneurs who come to join us are building those ventures, and investors are helping invest into those types of ventures. And the community that's building over a long period of time helps provide that ability and that avenue for fellows to support one another and create their ventures. And lastly, EHF has a unique relationship with the New Zealand government, where there's a new visa program called the Global Impact Visa that's available to fellows who are applying from overseas to New Zealand. This is the most entrepreneur-friendly visa in the world, and is the first also to focus on impact. And so we're very excited about that. We'll talk a lot more about the visa later on, but at a high level, this is intended for people who want to build long-term bases in the country to access. And so at the end of the 3 years, you can qualify for permanent residency. So the fellowship program attracts up to 100 international and up to 20 Kiwi fellows per year. We've got 2 cohorts per year, so that could go up to 60. We're not trying to fill a quota. We'll talk about the first group of fellows that we selected, which was significantly lower than the number that we have a cap on. But that's really roughly the number that we can take up to per year. The fellowship is a 3-year fellowship where fellows get together, spend a whole lot of time together in New Zealand and around the world in a way that there's unique value added. We'll talk a lot about what the fellowship program is actually going to look like. But the program we've set up is for the 3 years, but also 3 years is just the beginning of the journey for us. We're building a lifelong community. And so by somebody joining the fellowship, they're building a relationship with New Zealand and with EHF for a long period of time.
Great. So I'll go ahead and jump in now. This is what we're going to be covering today. So we'll talk some more. That was a high-level overview from Joseph, but we'll talk a little bit more about what the fellowship experience really offers and what it feels like, what it entails. And then we'll get into who we're looking for and some of the selection criteria. And then finally, some of the next steps and how you can get involved. One thing I'll say is that we found in the past that it works best if we go ahead and go through all the slides, so that oftentimes we find that people get their questions answered as we go through the slides. And then at the end, we'll get to all of your questions. And so please do, we've had questions coming in, please do keep them coming. We're not ignoring your questions. We will get to them at the end. And then one other note on that is that Alina, who leads content and communications for us, is also helping answer the questions. And so you'll see her popping up there in the chat as well, or in the question box as well. Great. So what does the fellowship really offer? First and foremost, it is a global community of people who are creating positive change from New Zealand. And so, you know, the change makers piece, the people who are out there and not just being frustrated about the problems in the world, but doing something about it, that's a key part of it. And then also people who are excited about the potential and the opportunity of New Zealand as a base to create those changes. So as Joseph mentioned, we've just gotten through selecting our first cohort, and we wanted to share some of the statistics about that. We started out with 658 expressions of interest, and so those were people who said, yes, this seems like this is a good program for me. And then ultimately from that, we received 311 applications. And from that, we had about a 10% acceptance rate. So we selected 30 fellows, and you can see that the gender split there between men and women was even. We put that in here just to be upfront as well, that this is a competitive process. And so that's why through the webinars, we really want to share more about what it is that we're looking for and what really fits with the fellowship. So who are the people that are part of this fellowship community? We wanted to give you a few examples of the types of people that have come through. And I'll go through these briefly, but the key thing that you'll notice is that we really are looking for a range of people. And so, for example, with this first one, Mark, he's someone who's, so he co-founded the world's leading cryptocurrency exchange platform, and has been working in Silicon Valley, and so brings a lot of the growth potential, right? He really knows how to scale a business and how to make it financially viable, and is interested now in bringing those blockchain technologies that he's been using to New Zealand. And so that's one type of person that is coming through. With Jen and Kathy, you see people who, both of them have very different experiences. So Jen was a former NASA engineer, and Kathy is currently running one of the leading entrepreneurship festivals in Europe. And they're really excited about coming to New Zealand and working on a suite of tools for collaborative finance. So how people can make their financial decisions together. So again, you see something slightly different there, where they're really thinking about what are the existing financial tools that we have and how can we shift that to different ways of operating and different ways of organizing to really enable that. And then here you see Anahera, and she is someone who's a real community builder, who's deeply grounded in her Indigenous roots. And so she's been able to work across a range of sectors, from government to nonprofit to business, to really build business skills in some of the Indigenous communities across New Zealand. A couple more investor and entrepreneur examples. So another person we're seeing coming through is Wang, who's someone who has bases all around the world, from Hong Kong and China to Silicon Valley. And he's someone who's collectively across his funds raised $210 million US, and has been able to spot potential and in companies like Zoom, which is the platform that we're on now, and also Evernote and JD.com, which is China's Amazon. So, you can see here the fellowship is open for investors as well as entrepreneurs. We really want people who, we want a mini microcosm of what a great entrepreneurial ecosystem looks like, and the investors are a great part of that. Maria is a nonprofit leader, so change can be, we believe that impact and change can come from for-profits or from not-for-profits. And Maria is doing incredible work across Latin America around education and using the tools of play to help teach teamwork and empathy and equality to children in schools. And then finally, May, who's an incredible connector. And so she's someone who's been a leader in clean energy and sustainability, and also has toolkits that she's been developing for healthy nutrition. So again, across these people, you can see really looking for a range, but the theme is that they're all creating some type of positive impact. And that positive impact might come from the deep technology that they're building or from the communities that they're bringing together. But that piece is a common theme. And then also the opportunity that they see in New Zealand for really being able to take them to the next level of the positive impact that they're creating. Great, so that's that first piece, the people and the amazing skills that the people bring to this fellowship. And this next piece, this next key thing that we see coming from the fellowship is what you get when you put those people together in a room and you have the platform of this fellowship for the people, the fellows involved to grow as well and really bring their passions to life. And so what does that look like? These are photos from a regular event that we run called New Frontiers. New Frontiers is an opportunity to bring together people who are doing amazing work in innovation, both across New Zealand and from around the world. And this is going to be a key part of the fellow experience. Something that we've seen in past New Frontiers when we've run it is people at this, you get people getting to share what they're working on. We'll have opportunities for the fellows to share what they're working on. And from that, and from sort of that natural, organic, people bumping into each other, we've seen all sorts of wonderful collaborations rise as a result of that. And so this is both an opportunity for the fellows at this event to share the great work that they're doing, for us to help the fellows amplify that good work, and then also to bring together people who'd be great supporters and partners and collaborators with those fellows on their work. And you can see here as well that the event, the New Frontiers event, is very nature-based, and it's really about the people. So yes, the people are doing great work, and we want to talk about the work, but it is very much about making sure that we're grounded in nature and our surroundings and who we are as people. This is also another example of the types of learning and growth potential that we have within our cohort. So you can see here, these are examples just from our first cohort of the different industries that our fellows are working on. And just to pull out a few, we've got everything from blockchain, as I've mentioned, to healthcare, to social networks and women's empowerment and ecotourism. And we're really excited about what it looks like and what can arise when you take these different areas of expertise and these different perspectives and then bring them together in a room and see what that kind of cross-disciplinary action and knowledge can lead to. Another area that we're really excited about is the breadth of global connections that our first cohort has. So this slide here shows the different parts of the world where our fellows have meaningful connections. And you can see that our fellows are connected to every continent across the world. And from that, we're really excited as well about the perspective that you get from those different backgrounds and the different things that people have seen. And then the other thing we're excited about is what this means for New Zealand as a whole, and how this can help New Zealand be more connected and to be innovating with these other parts of the world as well. So now I'll pass it on to Joseph.
Thanks, Lauren. Another reason why fellows join EHF is we're building a world-class support network. So much of our network has got the fellows right at the heart of it, but there's so many other players that are supporting you and being around you at the same time. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see what the ecosystem will look like for EHF. Actually, just one back, Lauren. You'll see the broad spectrum here, from the companies that fellows are running, to the startup teams, to the investment funds that are just directly connected to EHF, as well as the alumni community that's going to build over a long period of time, our government partners. But around that, we've got mentors, incubators, accelerators from around the country and around the world, Maori, Indigenous Economic Development Agencies, different advisory groups, government agencies and support, research and development groups, and our global network of ambassadors that are spread across the country, and that's actively growing as well. And we're also building groups of investors that can provide support and be able to look into high potential ventures that our fellows are creating. And in the next slide, you'll see the broad network of the inaugural cohort, just to give you a sense of the types of organizations and groups that even this first group has worked into. So everywhere from SpaceX to Emmy Awards to Financial Times to First New Zealand Capital group to Peking University, OECD group, and so many different institutions that are based around the world. This is quite a global group of people, and that's really part of the big value that we provide to fellows by being part of the cohort, as well as accessing our broader support network. Next, the main thing that EHF is also creating value for is it's rooted in New Zealand, the incubation nation at the edge of the map. New Zealand really stands out to us because it's an amazing place to live. So if you go to the next slide, Lauren, and it's got very high political and civil liberties, from gay rights to it was one of the first, is the first country to allow women the right to vote. It's had a lot of progressive types of policies for humans and for the planet as well. One cool thing that's been going around the news lately is the fact that there's so many rivers and mountains that New Zealand has given personhood status to. And so it's experimented a lot with really progressive thoughts. It's the least corrupt country in the world as well, and this makes such a huge difference in getting things done in a way that you have high integrity and have high trust in the institutions that we have. And it's also the second most peaceful country in the world, and what that makes it really attractive to build long-term roots and raise a family and be really good in connecting with the broader community that exists. New Zealand has also got a very incredible culture. As you can see, Lauren and I are actually not born in this country. We've moved from different parts of the world, and it's been a very welcoming place for different types of people that have made New Zealand their new home. New Zealand, when you look at it around the world, it's leading in Indigenous relationships and rights, primarily based on the Treaty of Waitangi. There's a ton of work to be done in this space. And there's a lot of reconciliation and healing that's happening, but it's on the leading end of what's really happening around the world. I mentioned earlier, it's the first country to give the women the right to vote, and it's taken bold actions like that. It's also nuclear free. It's been like that for 30 years. And it's also a leader in diversity. To give you an example, Auckland City is more diverse than New York or London. And it's also considered to be the third most creative country in the world, and the second most generous country in terms of people giving donations to charitable organizations. And New Zealand is also a very happy country. It's the 8th happiest country in the world, and people take work-life balance quite seriously and really enjoy that. So it's got a lot of the best mixes of the different things that a lot of entrepreneurs look for. New Zealand is also great for scaling ventures. It's not just a good place to live. As the first in the world for ease of starting a business, strong trade relations and connections with the East, Asian economies and so on, and the West, Europe, Latin America, North America, and has been building strong connections with Africa as well. So for a small country of 4.7 million people, it's built so many different channels and opportunities. And on the ground, New Zealand has got a well-educated workforce. There's so many great universities that exist here that are producing really high-quality talent, and is ranked very highly amongst OECD countries. The government and educational institutions are investing a lot in these areas as well. New Zealand is also amazing for innovation and bringing new things to life. We've got companies like Facebook and Google and others that launch the products first in a place like here, experiment, because you take advantage of the network effects to get results quite fast and see the feedback of your work and iterate really fast. You can get access to government and various institutions quite easily compared to many places. So you can really move fast in ways that is really challenging in much larger places. And that's really where we see the unique capabilities of this country as an incubation nation, as a place where you can bring bold ideas to reality. From Google's Project Loon initiative to Glenn Martin, who's one of the New Zealand inventors who created the first personal jetpack. So people here innovate not just to make a ton of money, but also to solve problems and do things that humans haven't done elsewhere before. And that has got really creativity baked into it. Just to give you a few examples of the types of innovations that have come out of New Zealand, we've got Weta Digital, which is one of the leading post-production facilities in the world for film and digital media, and movies like Avatar and Lord of the Rings have been made there. Companies like Zero, you find building amazing software tools that have created for the accounting industry, and making it easy for small businesses to access accounting services in a much easier way that larger types of tools aren't able to do so. Other types of companies that we'd love to share with you are organizations like LanzaTech that created biofuels out of waste gases, or companies like Rocket Labs that recently just sent a rocket to space, and it's opened up a whole new space industry. All these examples, by the way, that we're sharing with you, those industries didn't fully materialize and exist before those companies were created. And so there are many opportunities for new entrepreneurs to come and build new types of industries here. Other types of companies that we've seen come out of New Zealand is Sunfed. New Zealand has got a strong agricultural basis, but companies like Sunfed are actually creating synthesized and synthetic meat using plants, and manufacturing it because they think that the amount of land and water that's used to grow meat is too much to be able to feed the people around the world, and so they're innovating that here. We've got groups like Inspiral that have built so many social enterprises under their umbrella and built communities of really innovative experimental organizations. And so here are just some flavors, but there's so many more great innovations in action that we see coming out of New Zealand that make it an exciting place to be part of. So to recap, the big draw cards for EHF and what we're creating is, first and foremost, we're a global community of change makers, people coming from around the world, leading innovation, leading new transformative ideas and turning them into reality in a place like New Zealand. EHF is offering fellows a platform to collaborate and grow with like-minded people, and is building a world-class support network around it, and is giving people an opportunity to build long-term connections with the country.
Great. Thanks, Joseph. And so we've talked a bit about, I'll just stay on that slide. We've talked a bit about what it is that the fellowship actually offers people. And then Joseph talked about the opportunities in New Zealand and some of the innovation that we already see happening here. And so the question we often get is, what do you expect to see as a result of all of this? And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that. As we've said, ultimately, we are building a community of people that are creating positive global impact in different ways. And we have 5 key areas where we see that impact happening. And so the first one, which is pretty intuitive, is people. We see people coming in who are building and scaling purposeful ventures that are solving important challenges in the world. And as they do that, our fellows are also connecting New Zealand startups with those global connections that they have, those networks that we see now going across all these different continents through the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. We're also looking for people who are really experimenting with different ways of doing things. And so one of the things we see coming out of this are some bigger systemic shifts, not just a solution here to this one problem here, but things that can work in New Zealand and can spread to the rest of the world and really change the paradigm. This next one, investing. So, as we mentioned, we have both entrepreneurs and investors coming through. For investors, we're looking for not just people who can contribute money, but people who are also excited about contributing their time and their mentorship and their own experience with growing and scaling companies. And then finally, this last point is supporting the New Zealand innovation ecosystem. And so that includes everything from mentoring others to partnering with great existing organizations in New Zealand, to some of those connections that we mentioned earlier. And so across this, you can see, at least for building and investing, those are 2 areas where a fellow might be in one area or the other. But otherwise, what we've been seeing is that our fellows are really touching across all of these. They're doing everything from connecting and experimenting to supporting. Great. So that was a bit more about the fellowship and what we hope to see coming out of it. And for this next section, we'll dive more into who it is that we're looking for and some of our selection criteria. So in terms of who we're looking for, we've really designed this in the spirit of Sir Edmund Hillary. As many of you know, he and Tenzing Norgay were the first people to summit Mount Everest. And what many people don't always know is that, first of all, he came from a humble background. He was a beekeeper. And, you know, he was someone who not only was willing to dare to do the impossible and was determined and committed in getting that done, but also someone who really lived out in the spirit of service. And so he dedicated much of his life, as you can see here, to building schools and training centers and hospitals with the Himalayan Trust. And so that's also something we're looking for in our fellows, is that spirit of stewardship and that awareness of being part of a bigger community. And so something else we like to mention with Sir Edmund Hillary is that it took 400 people for him and Tenzing Norgay to get to the top of the mountain. And so similarly, no one entrepreneur or investor is going to be able to make massive changes on their own. It really takes a village. It really takes a community of people behind them. So a little bit more specifically what that means in terms of some of our values, you can read them here. You can read more about them on our website, but you know, everything from being bold to the sense of interconnectedness to working authentically and with humility. Pass it back to Joseph. Oops, looks like we might have just, hey Joseph, is your sound working okay?
Yes, hi, sorry, I think we had a glitch here for a second.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, the screen is a little funky.
Okay, it looks like we're just having some internet problems. But it's on the selection criteria slide.
Got it. Sorry, I don't see that in front of me. So the selection criteria that we have are, first and foremost, we're looking for people who've got a bold vision to solve systemic challenges in society and create leading scale and large-scale positive impact in New Zealand. What do we mean by that? First, it is people who are working in new types of areas, bringing unique approaches to solving problems that exist in society, and their solutions can scale. Some people's solutions scale by scaling their ventures. Some people's solutions scale by showing a whole new model that hasn't existed before, and letting others take that and turn it into so many different types of ventures. But one thing you see consistent across all the people that we have selected are each person's work, they're pushing a new boundary that no one else has pushed before, and they're bringing a new approach to addressing the solution that they're working towards. Second is we're looking for people who demonstrate a drive, capability, and caliber, both as entrepreneurs and investors, to lead at the edge in their fields and deliver on their vision. So it's not just looking for people with a big and bold idea, but it's with a capability to and a commitment to work on it over a long period of time and have made some progress, either on that initiative or in the problem area that they're working on, to show us that, you know, they're both committed, but also they're bringing a very unique approach to it. And so just an idea for us is really not enough. We're looking for a broader set of capabilities that people are bringing around them. Third, we're looking for people who can build a long-term connection with New Zealand and who can best leverage its unique advantages and capabilities to innovate. New Zealand has, we talked a lot earlier, a lot of the unique capacities and capabilities that exist. And that is really powerful because it's really unique and we only have very few spots. And so our need is to get people who can best succeed here. And the platform that New Zealand gives them is one that they won't be able to find in other places. Fourth, we're building a community at the end of the day. And so each member of the fellowship program is contributing something to that community and providing support to other people, and both benefiting from the community as well. And so we're looking for people that we can back and grow with over a long period of time, We're not just looking for an exchange of value right away. We're looking to build 10, 20 plus year relationship with the fellows. And so that community aspect is very important to us. And last, but also very importantly, we're looking for people who embody the values that Lauren spoke about earlier, and people who will be good ambassadors for the country in the work that they do and the solutions that they bring. And as Lauren mentioned earlier, this is a very competitive process. And this selection criteria that we have is what we use when we evaluate candidates and people. And also at the end of the day, we use these to compare various candidates and be creating a cohort that is diverse and cohesive at the same time. And what that means is building people who are coming from many different walks of life, but also people who can support one another and thrive together in this community that we're creating. And so just by checking all these boxes doesn't necessarily guarantee acceptance into EHF, as it really depends on who else has applied in that cohort.
Thanks, Joseph. And then the other piece of the criteria is for our international fellows, the criteria for getting the global impact visa. So we'll talk a bit more in a second about the timelines, but the process of getting into the fellowship is separate from the process of then getting the global impact visa. For our international fellows, the criteria for the visa are having good health, having good character, and so that is based on not having criminal activity, having good language proficiency in English, and you know, that for us, it's not necessarily based just on a score. It's really thinking about if someone has the capability to do the work that they're proposing doing in New Zealand. This next one on the maintenance funds piece, and so that you can read more about what exactly could count as maintenance funds, but that could be anything from having savings in the bank to being able to demonstrate that you could earn this amount of income, and so would be able to support yourself while you're in New Zealand. For investors, any funds that are going to be invested in New Zealand must have been legally acquired. And then if you want to read more about the Global Impact Visa, please check out either the FAQs on our website or the Immigration New Zealand website.
If I could just add one thing to this is one unique aspect of the Global Impact Visa is the fact that it's taken a lot of the traditional requirements that immigration policies have, such as you know, you got to have X amount of money in your bank account to show that you can build your venture beyond just what you need to survive in New Zealand, or you know, you need to be within a certain age, or you need to have X amount of educational qualifications and so on. All those things are taken into consideration, but they're not criteria. They're not really used to make a determination or decision into someone's ability. And so with EHF, what we've done is, first and foremost, we're looking for potential to create impact locally and globally, and adding all the different information that people provide us on the online application form is what we use to make that decision. And the visa part is basically allowing for people with great potential to have access to New Zealand if they meet all these criteria.
Great. Thanks, Joseph. So hopefully by this point you're excited about staying engaged with the fellowship, and so we wanted to talk through ways that you can get involved. The key one is the fellow application process, and so applications are open right now for our second cohort. We're bringing in a new cohort of people every 6 months, and so the deadline for our second cohort will be October 1st. And then we'll go through a selection process, and there's the Edmund Hillary Fellowship selection process first, followed by the Global Impact Visa selection process for the international fellows. And then our Welcome Week in New Zealand will be in April of 2018. And of course, after that, there's not just the 3-year fellowship where we'll be bringing together community in all the ways that we talked about before. But even beyond that, there's the people who are fellows then become part of our alumni community and are involved with welcoming and supporting new fellows and continuing to stay involved in New Zealand. And the long-term involvement is a really key part for us, because we know that it takes a long time. It takes many years, more than 3, to get a great venture off the ground. And so we're really committed to staying involved with our fellows and our alumni for the long term as they continue to build out that longer vision. Joseph, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Lauren. So candidates, the selection process, to give you a bit of an insight into how it works, is people apply online, and we only take applications online. Then we review all applications. We've got groups of experts and various entrepreneurs who are participating in that process. And then we'll create a short list from all the recent applications to then create a list of people who we're going to invite for video interviews. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to invite everybody for a video interview, but those who are invited will then do an interview with us, and then we do a second shortlist from then on. And from that second shortlist, we do online checks and background research, but also do references, and that includes people, the fellows that candidates have worked with as peers, people who have been either their investors or board members or in some sort of authority figure, and people who these fellows have mentored or supported, no matter what the stage of the entrepreneurial experience that they're in. And then after we do that, we've got an independent selection panel that's outside of the EHF team that makes the decisions on who joins the fellowship program. The Kiwi fellows who are accepted in then become full fellows, and the internationals get an acceptance letter from us, and then can submit their global impact visa application. As some people have found out through the first process is, if somebody goes through this process and for some reason didn't end up making it through, or for some reason there wasn't a good fit, they can also apply again. And so that's something that's available if their circumstances change significantly. And we've been trying to do our best to provide one-on-one feedback to as many people as possible from what we've found in the selection process.
Great. And then just wanted to reiterate a few of the key dates. So if you're interested in getting involved with cohort 2, the application deadline is October 1st of this year. And then the welcome week will be in April of 2018. As Joseph mentioned, we have a new intake every 6 months. And so if this timing doesn't work for you for some reason, then we welcome you to look at some of the later cohorts that we'll be putting together. And with that, I just want to wrap up with a few other quick logistics. So if you're interested in applying, you can go to this link on our website, so www.ehf.org/apply. And if you're interested in applying and want to be kept in the loop on upcoming deadlines and other opportunities for people who want to become fellows, then just follow the second link here and you'll fill out a shorter form. It's shorter than the application form, just to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then that'll put you on the updates list for information specific to fellowship candidates. And then finally on the fee side, so these fees are here to help us cover the costs of both selecting and then supporting the fellows once they're on the ground. We are a nonprofit, and so you know, we're not looking to make a profit off of this. It's really so that we can be able to cover our costs. Joseph, I think you had something.
No, I was just reading some of the questions, quite looking forward to jumping in to answer that.
Okay, great. So on the fees, it is 850 Kiwi dollars for our entrepreneur applicants, and then 3,000 New Zealand dollars for our investor applicants. We do have scholarships available, so if you go to that apply page of our website and read that, you can learn more about the scholarships. The scholarships are for 50% off of the application prices. And so there's a short little form that you can fill out to put your name in for a scholarship. And then the last point here is that there is a 75% discount for New Zealanders as well. Great. So we're going to do questions. I'll leave this slide up here with the next steps so that you have some of those key links for getting in touch with us. But it looks like Joseph is ready to jump in with some questions.
This really great questions that have come up. One of them that I'd love to jump with is around the people applying as a team. So there are three, sorry, I'm just answering live here. There's a team of 3 people who are developing an organization. And so if you're working as a team on a venture and you're move as a group, then you comply to EHF as a team. Very specifically, what that looks like is out of the many of you, if there are, for example, 3 applicants in one venture team, you identify one primary applicant, and that person is the one who fills the form, and then provide information on the co-founders of the team. We're primarily looking for co-founders when we are evaluating teams. So if you've got maybe you and someone else as co-founders, and then you've got 3 other people who are hired by the organization, then the 3 others wouldn't necessarily be considered. It's primarily the co-founding team that we're looking for. And so you can apply together the team. Each team member doesn't need to submit their own application. It can just be one application per team. There's another question from Patrick here about EHF being interested in recruiting both entrepreneurs and investors. Does an entrepreneur need to create a business model that requires investment from the other investors, or can you look at new types of growth that doesn't require direct investment? Very good question there, Patrick. And there's no mandate for you to raise capital from our investor funds or other types of investors. We've got entrepreneurs who are building ventures and experimenting with their funding models, and not just pursuing the status quo. And so very much support creative ways of making them sustainable. And part of our model is to support people who are also experimenting with new approaches of scaling ventures. So we actually quite excited about those approaches. And also to give you an example, we've got one fellow who's joined the first cohort, who's creating different ownership structures for ventures, where, as I mentioned earlier, New Zealand gave rivers and mountains personhood status, and this group is experimenting with providing equity to nature bodies of companies, so it's not just individuals. And so there's some really cool experiments that are happening in this space, and we'd love to promote that.
Great. I can jump in on the next couple of questions. So the next one here is saying, it seems that many of the people who are part of our first cohort have been part of well-known global ventures. And so is it a deal breaker if someone hasn't been to some of these global organizations, hasn't been lucky enough to get to be part of them? And so no, it's not a deal breaker. The key thing we're really looking for is either a demonstrated ability to get great projects off the ground or some good traction on your existing project. And so, if you can demonstrate to us that here's what I've done, here's what I've been able to accomplish, we're happy with that, and we don't need to see certain name brands or organizations behind that.
Yeah, and we've got fellows in the first cohort that are at different stages, and there's some people who are quite early in their entrepreneurial stages as well. And so we're able to look at people at various stages. For those who are quite early stage in their own entrepreneurial careers, so much of what we find really standing out about them is just their success track record with what they've been given and the work that they have done, and how well they've been thinking about and developing their model for the work that they want to do, and then what is the potential of their execution and the venture that they want to create based on what EHF can offer. Since we cannot do everything for everybody, we've got to look into who can best take advantage of the network and capabilities that we're building around us.
Great. So this next question from Charlie is asking about if there's some crossover between work that different people are doing. How could you connect? And so first of all, that's great. We love seeing collaboration. We love seeing groups of people figure out ways that they can support each other and be stronger working together. So I'm so glad that you asked this question. What we would recommend is the Edmund Hillary Fellowship does have a Facebook group. And so if you all want, you can go, we have both a page that you can follow to get updates about us, but we have a group as well for people who are interested in our work and part of the community. And so that group is free for people to use as they like, and is a great place to look for potential collaborators as well.
And that's a big part of what EHF is promoting, is cross collaboration amongst fellows in areas where there is value. So that's something that we're going to be actively promoting. Another question I'd like to answer here is whether there's financial support for being part of the fellowship. And unfortunately, there isn't that directly for just joining the fellowship. What we'd love to do further down the line is create a scholarship fund to help some entrepreneurs who need financial support to survive and look after themselves so that they can focus the time and energy on. But we're way ahead to creating something like that. So much of the financial support that we're been building around EHF is having access to research and development grants for different ventures that require that and can qualify for that, or for fellows to have access to different types of investors if they're building nonprofits, then philanthropic organizations. And so providing avenues for the work that fellows are doing to be able to access resources to help them succeed.
I'll just jump in. Oh, yeah.
By Angeline here. The question is, would the applicants need to be established in their venture idea already? It seems those picked already are in the first round seem very established. What are the thoughts around those who are just starting with an idea? So from what we've learned selecting the first cohort is people who haven't been involved in any entrepreneurial activities, who haven't been involved in highly innovative environments and areas, and are just coming to us with an idea, haven't been as successful compared to individuals who might just even be building and developing their new concept and their new venture, but have had some exposure and experience in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And so having a venture already established isn't a pre-requirement that is hard for us. We've got fellows who are developing still their ventures, but their experiences that they have brought over have really stood out to show their capacity to execute and their capacity to build something that can create a global impact.
Great. And I'll just jump in. I saw some questions going through earlier that had to do with some of the English language requirements. And the best recommendation I can give for that, or questions about the maintenance funds or any of the other Immigration New Zealand criteria, is to go to the Immigration New Zealand website. If you go to the our FAQs, so the FAQs on the Edmund Hillary Fellowship website, we have a link there. If you just look for Immigration New Zealand, we link to the appropriate page on Immigration New Zealand, and you can input both your country of citizenship and your country of residence, and they'll give you very specific information about what you need for each of the criteria.
Thanks, Lauren. I'll answer this question by Harshita, which says, how would you choose applicants with similar profile or venture ideas that you already have in previous cohorts or as a recent applicant? That's a very good question. So if there are people who are applying and working in problem areas that other fellows are working on, and if the approach that they're bringing adds very unique value to the ecosystem and the work, then that will actually be quite exciting for EHF, because it helps strengthen that cluster, that ecosystem. But at the same time, we're open to people who are doing very new types of things and working in new types of industries. And so it doesn't directly harm you or directly get you closer to acceptance in the process. But what we typically ask as you're thinking through that is, what is the problem area that you're really looking to solve, and what unique approaches are you bringing that doesn't exist in the ecosystem and doesn't exist in the industry that you're in, and what is the impact potential of your work? The answers to those types of questions is what our selection team is looking for when comparing a whole lot of candidates that are coming through.
Great. I'll jump in. There's a question here from Sumit about whether the primary applicant needs to be the inventor of the question, of the idea. And there is also a piece of this that has to do with non-New Zealand versus New Zealand citizens. So the way we think about it, let me maybe back up for a second and talk about the different ways that team members could be involved with the fellowship. So for people who are co-founders, we recommend that one person apply as the primary applicant, but typically it's good for co-founders to also, for the co-founder applying, to put the names of the other co-founders, and then all the co-founders would go through the selection process with us. And so if that team goes to the interview stage, for example, we would look to interview all the co-founders and then include them all in the fellowship. So that's typically good for people who are going to be involved in key decisions around the business, because then they get the opportunity to be at all of the events. The other option is for people who are part of the team, but maybe are not key decision makers or are less involved, or in some cases, maybe in a different part of the world and looking to stay more closely based there. Then it might make sense to have a key person from the team apply to be a fellow, and then the others could be involved either just, as members of the team for the fellowship, or could eventually get work visas to come to New Zealand through the company that gets established by the fellow here. So those are the two pathways, just at a higher level. And then, for the specific question, the short answer then is that no, the primary applicant doesn't need to be the inventor of the idea. We're really, first and foremost, looking at the people who are applying, so the people behind the idea, the person putting the application forward, and then we'll be looking at what they're able to implement and accomplish. But where the idea came from is, as long as it's all legal and above board, that's we're not concerned about that.
Thanks, Lauren. I'll answer a question here by Ryan about how our new Kiwis taught the New Zealand culture with regards to understanding how we do the same things differently. That's a very good question, and we can have long discussions about that. At a high level, the way we're introducing our international fellows to New Zealand and the culture here is through multifaceted ways, both by having Kiwi fellows as part of the program as peers, through the events, through the one-on-one introductions, and also through the time that our fellows spend in New Zealand and how they connect with the broader ecosystem. And so that is such an important way for fellows to come and connect and better understand the New Zealand ecosystem, what really happens here, the business culture, and so on. When we talk about how we do the same things differently, it's not just talking about New Zealand culture, it's about around the world, where we see the various challenges that the world is facing today is requiring really creative approaches, entrepreneurial talent, and cutting-edge innovation for us to be able to think about the future of food, or how to address climate change, or tackling inequality or education opportunities, or how we take advantage of space innovations or finance systems. So all these different areas that many innovators around the world are tackling are requiring fresh and new perspectives and new ways of approaching it. Our focus very much is bridging those types of approaches with capability to execute on them and build the early models so that we can build new types of models that can scale.
Great. I'll just jump in. There's a question around how detailed the financials should be when we in the business plan part of the application. And something to flag there is that we have changed our application form. So one thing that we found and that we got as feedback after this first round of applications was that it felt, for as much as we said we really want to focus on the person first, that the old application form felt like it was much more venture first. And so what you'll see when you go in and look at the revised application form is that we have changed it so that it is, first and foremost, more of the questions around the person. And as a result of that, we're actually asking for less in terms of the business detailed financials. Of course, we are still looking for evidence of ability to implement and that this venture could be successful, but it is much more the person first and foremost.
Another question from Kaya here is, when you're applying, do you need to have either a website or make the work that you're doing publicly available? That's not a requirement. We've got fellows who have been accepted in the first cohort who are working on something that will be unveiled in the next few years, and they provided that information. We take data security very seriously, and when applicants provide us confidential information, we only use it for the purpose of evaluating them and using it as such. But you don't need to have your entire life publicly available for a candidate to be interesting to EHF.
I'll just flag real quick, we probably have time for a couple, maybe 2 more questions. So if you have a burning question that you've been waiting to send us, please go ahead and send it on through. And if we don't see more questions pop up, then we'll look to wrap up soon. But we'll just hang out for a minute so that we can get any of those last questions that you might have been waiting to ask. Anything else on your side, Yosef?
No. Well, I guess one thing on the Global Impact Visa is specifically around families as well. So if people want to bring their own families, partners and children, Immigration New Zealand allows for that to happen for people who are coming through. And so that is something that we're very lucky that the government is able to offer.
Great. So we have the last questions coming through. So thanks for sending those along. So there's a question here around if my venture is on the verge of receiving funding, would EHF possibly counter an existing offer? That's a good question, because we should clarify that being part of the fellowship means that there's access to the community and the broader network and mentorship and support, but the fellowship does not provide with it an investment or a financial contribution. So it means that the fellows who are involved aren't giving up any equity to be part of the fellowship, but it also means that we're not making an investment. At least not of money, certainly of our time and hope.
Yeah. I'll take the next question from Angeline, which is important to be touched upon, whether once you get accepted, do you need to all be in New Zealand for 3 years every day? And the answer is it depends on the type of work that you're doing and the life that you have and how you're adding unique value and what your venture requires. And so we're taking this on a case-by-case basis. And so there isn't one generic mandate that's for everybody. So for example, for the visa, there isn't a minimum number of days required in New Zealand that's addressable for everybody. So for the first cohort, we've got fellows who are living most of the year in New Zealand, and there are a few people who are spending a few months a year in New Zealand because of the circumstances that they have and the work that they want to do and the value they're adding ties into their global lives that they have. So a lot of this is really just understanding the work that you want to do and what will require for you to be successful.
So just, I see, Angeline, there's a follow-up there. So yes, we would allow both people who are part of the team and to be coming to New Zealand. So one team could have multiple people who are part of the fellowship and who get the Global Impact Visa, for example. Great.
Can I answer the one for Patrick? You talked about some projects that will be developed over years. Could we say something about the timeline of ventures that we're hoping to support? What sort of timeline are we looking for people before releasing version 1? It really depends. It really depends on the type of work that you're doing and the amount of work that needs to happen before you release your work. So we don't have a specific mandate specifically on that says you need to have your venture launched by this date or that date. But what we look for is what is an applicant's execution capacity, and does it fit with the work that they want to do? So there are people, the nature of the work that they're doing requires, some people, their work requires about 3, 4, 5 years of background work and research and development before they can put something out there. for example, sending rockets to space. There's a ton of work that happens before you do something like that. Other types of projects, the entrepreneurs can launch a version of their product, a version of their idea and concept out there, depending on how complicated and complex it is. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis. But if a candidate is fully committed to realizing their vision and putting the effort and trying to get as much feedback as possible for them to be successful, then we'd be quite interested in learning more about the type of work those people are doing.
Great. So that was great timing. We're going to go ahead and wrap up there. Thank you all again for your interest in the fellowship. Thanks for joining us for this webinar and bringing all of your great questions. We will go ahead and make this recording available, so we'll upload it to our YouTube channel once we have that all ready. And please keep in touch. Feel free to reach out to us via our website or other channels if you have other questions that come up. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.